In every murder, there are clues. Vital evidence that points to who the killer is and how they killed.
It wasn't a normal crime scene.
Forensics were crucial.
Every contact leaves a trace.
It's down to detectives, crime scene investigators, and forensic experts to piece those clues together.
It's like trying to do a jigsaw when you haven't got the picture on the box.
Using cutting-edge techniques and the power of science.
His jeans had the profile of the crime scene on them. I know that he had knelt down on the soil.
To convict the killers.
We've got to find him and catch him.
He's probably the most dangerous person I've prosecuted.
And bring justice to the victims.
She's never, ever coming home.
She'll never be forgotten, ever.
In this episode, a woman is attacked and murdered in the middle of suburbia.
People in the area were visibly shocked.
By a killer who spent a night hunting for victims.
What's striking about this attack is the sheer brutality of it.
And who left one tiny piece of evidence.
From an investigative point of view, you can't get any better evidence.
This is Forensics, Catching the Killer.
I was off duty. I realised I had about 6 missed calls, and they were all from work. I was then told that a young female had been attacked, quite a brutal assault.
This area itself is a quiet residential area, and at the time it would still have had people walking up and down the road, going about their business, people driving. It's a suburban street, nothing special. Nothing different really from this street, from any other quiet residential street. It's just a nice area.
The incident happens about 2:20 in the morning, Sunday morning.
It was in Cranbrook Road, which we can see here. You can see the traffic up and down, and across the other side of the road, White House with some white balustrade is where the actual attack happened. The victim was found by members of the public. They found her lying in the front garden, clearly being assaulted, and her clothes in disarray.
The young woman was 35-year-old Zara Alina. She was taken to the Royal London Hospital on the 26th of June, 2022, but died from her horrific injuries just a few hours later. Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams from the Met Police's Major Investigation Team was put in charge of the investigation.
As the Senior Investigating Officer, I identify a number of strands within the investigation, be they CCTV, be they forensic, be they house-to-house witnesses. So in this case, we don't know anything really. So the forensics are a huge priority. We had crime scene managers assess the scene. We had forensic retrieval taking place. It's very, very important we identify our victim. We want to identify our suspect, because will he strike again? And that is in the back of your mind. Will he strike again?
This was a shocking attack in a usually peaceful part of London. Ashna Hurinag is a TV reporter who covered the story.
Ilford is a really busy, diverse part of London, both in terms of socio-economic backgrounds, but also in terms of race, religion. It's a bit of a melting pot, loads and loads of families, but specifically, and I suppose key to this, is it's a really generally quite safe place to live. Zara Alina was a young woman in her 30s, had grown up in Ilford. These were the streets that she knew so well. She was an aspiring lawyer, a recent law graduate. She had been doing an internship at the Royal Courts of Justice. This was somebody who cared about law, order and justice. And we understood that she was a woman that was constantly giving back to her community. She volunteered in soup kitchens. That's something that very few people do. Someone who actively gives back, who volunteers. And she was, from what we understand from her family, an integral part of her family unit. Loved so incredibly dearly, and someone they looked to as a pillar.
Zara was last seen by her family on the Saturday. Later that evening, she went to meet a friend.
Zara and her friend have been in Champs Wine Bar Club, and they leave there about 2 o'clock. Her friend gets a taxi, Zara decides that she's going to walk, and she walks along Cranbrook, and it's a long, long road.
She only lived 15 minutes away, so she would just walk. It's fine. I'll just walk home. I do it all the time. It's a road that I know really well. It's in the early hours, but there are cabs everywhere. There's buses still running, and people had been out drinking, had been in the local bars, and there are plenty of greengrocers and supermarkets that are open really late at night in that area. She proceeded to walk up the streets with her tote bag on her shoulder and started walking home.
It was a 2-mile walk home, which Zara had made many times before, but this night was to be the last. She got as far as halfway down Cranbrook Road, 10 minutes away from her home.
Some people heard the attack going on, didn't realise what it was at the time, thought it was somebody arguing, maybe someone urinating. Witnesses were saying that there was some man stamping, which is why one of them thought the person was breaking up some cardboard boxes and he was just compressing them to put in a bin. They weren't aware of what was happening. Subsequently, they wandered over, they passed where Zara was lying and they found her. They tried to give first aid. They called 999, paramedics down, and they took it over from there.
Zara was found to have sustained 46 separate injuries. She'd been stamped on, strangled, sexually assaulted, and beaten. The forensic pathologist eventually concluded that her death was caused by traumatic brain injuries and neck compression. The driveway where she had been found became a crime scene and was cordoned off. Andrew Langley is a veteran crime scene manager, formerly for the Metropolitan Police.
At this scene, the focus is all on where Zara has been found. But at that stage, you don't know what's happened. It's dangerous to assume that this is the entirety of your scene, because you have to bear in mind that the initial contact may have been somewhere else. There may have been an interaction between people several streets away. You just don't know at that stage. So you have to keep your mind open that this is where the scene's ended. Where did it start? With a scene like Zara's, it's vital that you record everything. Photography, making sure that you capture everything before you start to disturb the scene.
And more evidence was to be found, not just on the driveway where Zara had been discovered, but further along the street as well. These clues, Zara's clothes and various possessions, suggested the route which the attacker might have taken to get away.
So the location of Zara's clothing and possessions enable you to start to build some understanding around what's gone on. You start to build a picture of quite a chaotic incident.
He's taken property from Zara. He's taken items of clothing from her. He's taken her mobile phone. He's taken her purse. And as he's heading back along Cranbrook Road, he's discarding these. He'll throw her leggings into one garden. He'll throw a purse into a bush. He's thrown a mobile phone into another garden. And they're all very haphazard.
But it wasn't just Zara's personal belongings which the attacker left behind. Forensic investigators found one more piece of crucial evidence.
We had a fingerprint in blood at the scene. It was left on a low wall, like a balustrade, and it's on brickwork. And it's not the best surface, but it still gave ridge detail, and that was vital. That was a main priority at that time.
Could this one finger mark lead detectives to a match and the positive identification of Zara's killer? Ilford, London, in June 2022. 35-year-old Zara Alina had been brutally attacked on a private driveway on a suburban street after a night out with a friend. She was just 10 minutes from her home. Zara died from her injuries shortly afterwards in hospital. As police work continued, the local community awoke the next morning to the shocking news of her death.
People in the area were quite visibly shocked. There was a lot of distress, particularly because this is a residential area. There are families around, and this sort of thing really never happens. And it was such an unusual situation. A young woman's body had been found in a driveway, and that's terrifying to people that live in that local area.
I've got 2 daughters, and it could happen to anyone. It's just really, really sad.
The police wanted information, and therefore they were being quite open with what they needed from the press and what they needed from the public, because at that stage they had no idea why this young woman had been killed.
It is crucial that anyone with information comes forward to the police or calls Crime Stoppers anonymously in order to help catch whoever is responsible for this truly shocking act of violence.
Zara's death was the latest in a number of high-profile cases of women being randomly attacked and murdered by strangers.
There is an epidemic of violence against women and girls. When is this going to end?
The conversation and the awareness of violence against women and girls was heightened at this time. People were talking about the deaths of Sarah Everard, the murders of Nicole Smallman, Bieber Henry and Sabina Nessa. There was a deep sense of mourning, sorrow, anger. Why is this being allowed to continue in such a way? Why is nobody doing something about it? Incredible sense of frustration that had just been building.
Stop saying the same thing. She could see her home almost, and she couldn't walk there. So she is not responsible for what happened to her. He is responsible for what happened to her.
But while the public rage and the debates continued, Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams was focusing his attention on a tiny bloodied finger mark. The blood, tragically, was Zara's, but its presence was vital for the investigation.
The retrieval of the bloodied fingerprint is crucial to us. Blood will only be wet for a very short period of time, it dries, and then there won't be any fingerprint. However, in this case, after the attack, during the attack, he steadies himself on this wall, this low balustrade, and his fingerprints have gone onto the brickwork after he's attacked Zara and have left his fingerprints in her blood.
We had these white painted balustrades in the front garden. That's unusual. You know, I can't think of many instances where I've come across that, but that enabled the finger marks in blood to be seen. If it had just been bare brick, pebble dash, very unlikely that you'd be able to recover finger marks in blood from that location.
This one solitary finger mark would need in-depth analysis, but it had been left in blood and outside on the driveway where Zara was attacked. So forensic investigators knew it was at risk from the elements and that they needed to capture it in detail.
They're going to be recovered photographically. There are other ways of finding fingerprints, but finger mark in blood, certainly blood that may still be wet, photography is the best option. It's not just a question of taking a photograph. You need to maximise what you've got there. You need to make sure that you get the best possible image so that it can be searched to see if you can identify somebody. Sometimes you'd use chemicals for doing that. Sometimes you can do it using light, be that with lasers, ultraviolet light, or any different number of light sources. But that enables that image to get taken away from the scene straight away and taken to a fingerprint bureau where they can carry out those urgent searches 24/7.
Metropolitan Police Fingerprint Bureau expert Chris Caddis was brought in to try to find a match.
Finger marks in blood could be highly evidential if they are part of the scene, which is the assumption that's made by the investigators. It could be the victims, it could be the perpetrators, or it could be someone who intervened. Sometimes when you receive a finger mark, you are able to tell which hand it belongs to as a finger. In this case, the finger mark was only a tip of a finger. It was the tip of the right thumb, but there were enough characteristics to enable a comparison.
But without a suspect, that comparison couldn't be made. So investigators' next step was to run the image of the print through the National Fingerprint Database.
The National Fingerprint Database is a collection of fingerprints taken in custody of people who have been convicted. Each case is approached differently with a strategy. So if you have suspects, a direct comparison can be made against the crime scene marks. If there's an unknown perpetrator, then the database is used if the mark is suitable for that search. When it was initially searched in the database, no matches were made, no identifications were made. And this is not uncommon because marks deposited in blood can be more challenging as the finger marks can be distorted, have different deposition pressure, have superimposition, background information, contaminants. This makes it challenging for a computer system to interpret and compare. A human examiner always has to make the comparison and give an opinion on whether it is made by the same source.
In this case, there wasn't that match against the database, but you don't know at this stage whether it's because the mark isn't of good enough quality or the fact that the fingerprints belonging to the suspect may not be on the database. Perhaps he's never come to the notice of police before.
With a potentially useful fingerprint, but no match on the national database, investigators would need to explore other avenues for a breakthrough.
What struck me immediately was that this is an incredibly busy road for somewhere that is residential. Constant flow of traffic, cars, buses, bikes. And a weird thing that I noticed was that there was a lot of CCTV around and a lot of doorbell cameras on the homes of those that lived along that road.
It was one of those doorbell cameras which recorded the attack on Zara in its entirety and in disturbing detail.
We had grainy image of the actual offence itself. It was captured from a house CCTV. It gave us what had happened and the time it had happened, and we could work out from constant viewing of it that there was a very violent assault going on. It wasn't clear. There was nothing quick around this. This was sustained over a period of time. And you also realise the brutality of the assault inflicted on Zara. There is some form of sexual element in this. He is removing parts of her clothing, and at the same time he is hitting her, he's stamping on her, he's punching her. And then he will break off. He'll break off this attack and he'll walk out of the front garden, he'll start to walk down Cranbrook Road again, and then he'll stop, and he'll come back, and he'll carry on the assault. You don't know, nothing's disturbed him as such. You don't know why he comes back, but he comes back and he's then assaulting her again before he finally leaves her. He's not in any fear that someone's watching him. He's just completely oblivious to everything else around him, like nothing else matters. And he's totally fixated with her. Viewing what we viewed, you're thinking, this is one dangerous individual and he needs to be arrested as soon as possible.
June 2022. Zara Elena had been found in the early hours of a Sunday morning on a normal residential street in Ilford, East London. She had been beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. Zara later died from her injuries. Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams of the Metropolitan Police was the senior investigating officer tasked with finding Zara's killer. A private security camera had captured the attack itself. Now Dave's team needed to access other CCTV to track the killer's movements before and after it.
Initially, when we go out on CCTV, we're doing everything fast time. You're probably talking about 3 or 4 officers. They will see if the cameras are operating for a start off, seeing if they're recording the next thing, and if they are, then we will view them in situ. And you know the time of the offence, so you can work backwards and forwards to see where the suspect goes. And they will form a direction of travel. They will fast time view that, and then they will look for other cameras along the road that will give another image, and they will just keep backtracking and backtracking and backtracking. Cranbrook Road is a long, long road. It's several miles, I think, in distance. It leads into Ilford town centre. But our job will be to identify all CCTV points along that road.
The video surveillance team were looking for one person in all the footage from all the cameras they accessed. The same one who'd been filmed attacking Zara.
We really want the first point where he meets Zara. Is it a chance meeting? Has he seen her before? Is it somebody that he has met earlier in the evening? We're all trying to eliminate all of these type of things, but that takes time, and that isn't fast time. That is working to get yourself a best image of your suspect so that you can put it out there to your other officers for identification purposes. And that viewing has to be really detailed, because you miss something, it could be vital. You miss turning down a road, you miss going through a park, you miss crossing a road, and all of a sudden you've got a void of evidence.
Further analysis of footage from CCTV cameras in the vicinity of the attack and the surrounding area revealed more details about the killer and his movements earlier that night.
He is in a pub and he's in a t-shirt, and what strikes you immediately is that he's incredibly intoxicated.
We can also see in his condition getting worse as he gets on, and it looks like we can see drug taking. He became a nuisance to bar staff in there. Some of the girls getting nervous around him, and he eventually is asked to leave.
CCTV picked up chilling footage of the suspect stalking multiple women over a prolonged period of time in those early hours of Sunday morning.
Zara wasn't the first person that night that attracted his attention, and it was quite clear that he formed the intent very early on in that evening that he was going to have some type of interaction with a female, and he didn't care who that female was.
He was walking around Ilford town centre, heavily intoxicated, stalking multiple women for hours. And very quickly he starts to pick on different women to follow, out of the blue, and for no apparent reason. And one woman he follows for 21 minutes. Some of the women notice that he's following them, and some of them don't. Very quickly he picks on one woman who's on her phone, and he follows her from the train station as she appears to be walking home. He's stumbling around. The woman notices and she runs into a greengrocer's. She even bumps into him in the supermarket and looks visibly alarmed because she's wondering why a stranger is following her. He exits that supermarket and, probably most chilling of all, waits round the corner. As that woman exits the supermarket and continues on her journey home, talking on the phone at some points, he starts to follow her. The next time they're picked up on CCTV footage, the woman is running away. He was striding determinedly behind her. We understand this woman managed to slip down a side street and managed to get away.
After 2 more unsuccessful attempts, one at a chicken shop on Romford Road and the other outside Aston Community Centre, the suspect returns onto Cranbrook Road.
He then goes back into Cranbrook Road and picks up with another woman, and he follows her for a considerable distance, and he's getting closer and closer and closer. And it's quite noticeable. One point that we can view on the CCTV is that there are 2 lads on the opposite side of the carriageway to him, and they start to walk across the road, and their gaze is taken by him. They stop, and they stop in the middle of the road, and they just look at him as he's gone past, and they are clearly thinking something's not quite right. They end up by walking away. He continues following this lady. They turn off, then a side road, and he gets ahead of her, and he hides. We see him hide in a passageway between 2 houses, and then he's obviously watching, and we see the girl in the yellow jacket, and she ends up going into her address. He obviously doesn't know that she lives there. He goes into her address, he comes out, sees what's happened, and he heads off again. And it's at that point where he heads off to rejoin Cranbrook Road that he picks up with Zara.
Shortly after 2 a.m, following several of these failed attempts to get close to other lone women, CCTV cameras finally pick up an image of both the attacker and Zara as their paths crossed at the corner of Cranbrook and Northbrook Road.
He's walking at this point down Cranbrook Road when he reaches a crossroads. And it's at that point, clearly thinks he's found his next person to pursue. It's not clear at what point Zara knew that he was following her, if she knew at all. But he is walking with purpose. His intention has been building, and as has his frustration.
Zara was walking along Cranbrook Road in this direction towards us. He then came out of Northbrook Road and saw Zara and immediately fell in behind her and started following her. And he followed her all the way along this road, past us, and continued going along that direction towards Gants Hill. As he follows her close by, he gains on her and gains on her until he gets into very close proximity to her, and then he just arms around her neck area and drags her down and drags her into the front garden of a residential house.
You watch this footage with dread, and the footage is grainy, but what you can tell and what comes across is the brutality and the sheer force of this attack. It was vicious. It was unrelenting. He stomped on her. He kicked her body numerous times, including her face. He sexually assaulted her. He broke so many of her bones and left her bleeding. And he walked so calmly away from the scene.
But having such clear images of both the attack and the perpetrator wasn't enough. Detective Chief Inspector Dave Wellams and his team now faced the challenge of identifying who he might be.
We did get some good images of the person we were looking for. Once you have that image, that is the focus of your investigation. Who's best then placed to identify that image? Well, I believe local officers. So that image was sent through to local officers that were on duty, and gradually we had some officers put forward possible identifications for this suspect.
This was an investigation moving fast, and the breakthrough came just one day after Zara died.
Everything was happening at a very frenetic pace that morning, early afternoon. And one of my detectives came running into my office and see me and said, Governor, I think this guy we're after is a guy called Jordan McSweeney. So I said, well, okay, why do you say that? And she says, well, an officer from the local borough has looked at the image, believes it's the same guy that he dealt with sometime previously. He's interviewed him. He's quite sure. And I've done some checking on our intelligence indices, and he's recently come out of prison.
This would mean that the fingerprints of this offender, Jordan McSweeney, would already be stored on the National Fingerprint Database. Chris Caddis was tasked with finding out if they matched the print left in Zara's blood at the scene of her murder.
A fingerprint examiner will follow a scientific methodology for a comparison, and this is the ACE process. They will analyse the mark from the crime scene, they will analyse the prints, they will make a comparison of those two impressions, and then come up with an evaluation and outcome. They are looking at friction-ridged skin. This is the skin that you find on your hands and feet. The ridges on these areas of skin deviate. Everyone has these in variation, and this is what makes fingerprints unique. So the examiner's job is to compare areas of friction-ridged skin, either from crime scenes or prints taken in custody, analyse those to see if they come from the same person. In the comparison of this finger mark against the prints, I was able to find a coincidence sequence of 26 characteristics. These are all a configuration unique to the prints, and both impressions were made by the same person. The verifier confirmed this outcome, and from that stage, that becomes an official identification for Jordan McSweeney.
One of my officers comes running in and says, we've just had a direct hit. It's Jordan McSweeney. They've done a one-to-one comparison and it's Jordan McSweeney all day long. So straight away then there's that impetus then for the investigation. Who, where, why is Jordan McSweeney? Where is he?
With a positive fingerprint match, detectives were now on the hunt to find Jordan McSweeney before he had the chance to attack again. In June 2022, police in Ilford, East London, were investigating the murder of a 35-year-old woman who'd been sexually assaulted, beaten and strangled to death on a residential street while making her way home. CCTV footage, as well as a bloody fingerprint left at the murder scene, had helped detectives identify a possible suspect. That man was Jordan McSweeney. Now DCI Dave Wellams and his team had to find him.
Jordan McSweeney is identified. I know that he's come out from prison very, very recently, within a week or so. The offence that he was in custody for was the possession of an offensive weapon. He got a substantial sentence for that and then was released out. And I also know that he's not obeying his conditions of release. He's not contacting the probation service. Where's he been released to? My first question. The answer comes back, well, there's no real address for him as such. It's relatives, but they've not seen him. Is he contactable, or they tried to contact him? He has not got a phone. Where's he living? We just don't know.
CCTV had shown McSweeney's movements leading up to the attack and the attack itself. Could it now be used to find out where he went after it?
We are still continuing to backtrack him. He's left the scene, he's walking back down Cranbrook Road, and he's heading towards Valentine's Park. And that then leads us on to the next piece of the investigation, because we see him leap over a fence and disappear into the park. We then track him again, CCTV again, and he heads into the park before we actually lose him, but he's heading in the direction of a fairground.
And there were more clues to be gleaned from the images.
You look at the individual concerned, you look at what he is like, his demeanour, his physical being, you form certain opinions. Me looking at it, and it's a hunch as such. You're thinking, this strikes me as a manual worker. He looks like he works physically with hands type of thing, the build of him. It's a distinct possibility he could be a fairground worker. We identify the owner of the fairground, and I asked one of my officers to go down, see him, and to show him the photograph and see if he knows who that could possibly be. This officer went down there, he found the gentleman and his wife, and he showed the pair of them the photograph. And they said, that's Jordan McSweeney. I said, you know him? I said, yes, we know him. I said, you wouldn't happen to know where he is, would you? And one of them said, yes, he's in that caravan over there.
With this news, arrest units had to be quickly mobilised.
With that, there's a mad scramble goes up. Our proactive units that we have are alerted, and they set off straight away to Valentine's Park. The area around the caravan is being contained, and they just open the caravan door to see the two males still in bed, and they enter. There's no you know, it's not me, what you're talking about, resistance, aggression or anything like that. He's handcuffed and he's led out and placed in police for transport.
Jordan McSweeney, you're under arrest for rape and murder of a female at Cranbrook Road on the 26th of June 2022 in the early hours of the morning. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention, when questioned, something you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand?
29-year-old Jordan McSweeney was taken into custody for police questioning, and the news was released to local and national news agencies.
The police revealed that they'd arrested a suspect over 24 hours after this incident happened, which immediately in the newsroom we started thinking, that's incredibly quick. And early indications were at that stage that this was not a man that knew Zara, and this appeared to be a random attack. We then started to discover that this was a man that had already been known to police. He was a prolific offender. He had over 20 convictions for over 60 offences. Petty theft, assault, racial harassment, a litany of convictions. He was an incredibly violent individual.
Again, closed-circuit TV footage matched the forensic findings which detectives secured from the caravan McSweeney was staying in.
In CCTV footage, the morning after, McSweeney is seen stashing a bag underneath another static caravan, and he's seen wandering around the funfair. Inside that bag, we now know, were items of his clothing that were stained with Zara's blood. And within the caravan that he was staying, we know that police officers also found evidence of Zara's DNA.
It's not just a question of grabbing that bag and taking it back to the police station. Everything has to be done in a careful manner. You need to make sure that you're not going to contaminate it yourself. Does it require a completely separate team of people to carry out that examination? Because if they've dealt with the primary scene where Zara's blood is, you need to make sure that then there's no chance that they're going to transfer anything from that scene onto that clothing, because that's what you're trying to prove scientifically.
We had a huge amount of forensic evidence. We have his trainers, Zara's blood all over them. The jeans showed a distribution of blood splatter. The lower legs, that was all of Zara's. The vest had blood on Zara's, the bedding, Zara's blood. So there was a wealth of forensic evidence.
It did appear to be incredibly lazy, almost as though he didn't think that his name would be attached to it, or almost as though he didn't think that anyone would bother finding her, and therefore no one would ever attach his name to the crime.
On the 18th of November 2022, Jordan McSweeney pled guilty to the murder of Zara Alina. With a trial no longer required, all that was left was for McSweeney to be sentenced. But even in that, he showed complete disregard for Zara and her loved ones.
The day of the sentencing, the courtroom was packed out. Journalists, barristers, solicitors, both the defence and prosecution, also family. Jordan McSweeney refused to be present during his sentencing. And it meant that the family had no opportunity to look him in the eye. They had no opportunity to see what this attacker looked like, to even start to process their closure, start to heal from it. He wouldn't even give them that. I think the judge on that day described him as spineless.
On the 14th of December 2022, Jordan McSweeney was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 38 years. He never faced Zara's family and never gave them any explanation as to why he did what he did to this bright, intelligent, compassionate woman with so much ahead of her.
Zara was the light, the warmth, the birds' song, the laughter in our family. We live with a profound loss each day, and each day we are destroyed a little more.
The forensics in this case were crucial, but it's one of those examples where the forensics worked hand in hand with traditional policing. That's the important thing here, that it shows that there's a balance between the two. On its own, the forensics may have got there, the traditional policing may have got there, but put them together and you end up with a much stronger result much quickly.
This attack was senseless. Zara was the sort of woman, her family said, that was always fighting for justice and for women, and she believed that women should be allowed to walk home alone. She believed that we were allowed to feel safe on the streets of Britain. But this was a horrific incident where he didn't allow her to make it to her front door on the streets that she grew up on. It's every woman's worst fear. And that's really sad.